The moment the clock hit 7:48 a.m., something happened that no royal watchers saw coming. A message, short yet razor sharp, slipped out from Kensington Palace and instantly shattered years of speculation. It didn't come through vague palace insiders or anonymous leaks. It came directly from the man who has mastered silence for half a decade. Prince William himself. 19 words. That's all it took to send shockwaves from London's foggy streets to the sunlit neighborhoods of Los Angeles.
So beautiful.
Oh, I don't know, I wasn't expecting that one. Yeah, it's just so great. This is why it's so nice to not have makeup on.
Words that didn't suggest, imply, or hint. Words that confirmed, and before anyone could even take a breath, the world realized something historic had just unfolded. Rumors had been swirling for months, but no one expected the future king to step in personally and slam a door shut so firmly that it echoed. Within minutes, news anchors looked stunned, analysts froze mid-sentence, and royal reporters outside Kensington Palace felt the air shift around them. They weren't witnessing another chapter, they were witnessing a conclusion. A conclusion wrapped in finality so absolute that even seasoned correspondents whispered, "This has never happened before." But what forced William to break years of calculated silence? What pressure built up behind palace walls until he reached a point where his voice, his own personal voice, became the only option left? Because this confirmation didn't appear out of thin air, it was born from months of quiet storms, subtle warnings, and behind-the-scenes battles that almost no one outside the royal inner circle understood. To trace how the situation reached this point, we have to go back to the autumn of 2024, a season that looked peaceful on the outside, but was rumbling underneath with tension that stretched everyone inside the monarchy. Catherine, already carrying more public duties than ever, noticed something unsettling. Every time she launched a new project, every time she stepped into the spotlight for a major initiative, articles appeared almost immediately, stories implying struggle, conflict, dissatisfaction. They weren't grounded in evidence. They leaned on vague phrases like "sources say" and "those close to the situation." But the timing was too tight to ignore. Catherine didn't jump to dramatic conclusions. She simply observed, quietly, carefully, until the pattern became undeniable. 10 major articles in 3 months, each released within 48 hours of her biggest appearances. Coincidence didn't fit anymore. Something strategic was happening, something coordinated. In early November, in the privacy of Kensington Palace, she laid out the timeline in front of William. He didn't speak immediately. He didn't have to. The truth was right there on the table. His wife had spent years building credibility through slow, steady work that resonated far beyond the UK. And now her reputation was being chipped at deliberately. He felt something inside him solidify a line, quietly drawn, not outwardly visible yet, but forming all the same. Charles, meanwhile, was wrestling with a different kind of burden. His reign was still in its fragile early years. His schedule was heavy. His health required caution, and unnecessary tensions strained him in ways only those closest to him understood. Every new Sussex-related media cycle pulled palace resources away from matters that actually mattered: international relations, national stability, internal reforms. Reports were landing on his desk faster than he could keep track, each one highlighting how much energy was being consumed by narratives that refused to settle. He wanted reconciliation. He said it openly to advisors. He wanted it because he was a father. But he was also a king, and a king cannot let hope override function. Then came the security briefing that changed everything. Intelligence teams flagged patterns that went beyond typical online hostility: targeted messaging, coordinated negativity, accounts pushing synchronized narratives about Catherine. It wasn't just noise, it had structure. William read the report word by word, each sentence tightening the resolve forming in him since September. When he asked how much of this was coming from accounts aligning themselves with pro-Sussex rhetoric, the answer was careful but unmistakable, a significant amount. Enough to show that the online storm wasn't random. And then came the diplomatic pressure, something the public rarely hears about. Officials from allied nations began quietly raising concerns. Nothing dramatic on the surface, just carefully worded inquiries about the monarchy's stability and whether the ongoing drama might affect cultural partnerships. One American official put it bluntly, "We need assurance the crown remains steady." It wasn't criticism, it was concern. But concern from partners with global influence isn't something a future king can ignore. Suddenly, this wasn't a family issue, a PR issue, or a tabloid story. It was a matter connected to foreign policy. Britain's reputation, international confidence. Princess Anne saw it coming before anyone else. Direct, unfiltered, and unwavering, she told William what no one else dared say aloud. Stop waiting for a miracle. Stop treating instability like a passing storm. Set boundaries, not emotional boundaries, formal ones. Ones that could not be twisted, blurred, or read between the lines. And William listened because Anne has always spoken from a place of duty, not drama. By late November, all those pressures had compressed into a single truth. The monarchy could no longer function under ambiguity. Every unclear line turned into a headline. Every silence became speculation. William reached a point he never expected to reach, where protecting the institution, his father, his wife, and his children outweighed the hope that things might someday improve. In a quiet conversation with Catherine, he admitted it. "I cannot fix this anymore, and trying to fix it is hurting the people I'm responsible for protecting." She didn't tell him what to do, she simply understood. That's how December 1st arrived. Not as an explosive turning point, but as the end of a slow, grinding climb that left no alternatives. That night, a small council met at Windsor Castle. Not the whole family, only those who would carry the weight of whatever came next. William, Charles, Anne, and Catherine. William laid out the statement, 19 words of clarity. No drama, no accusation, just a line drawn with unmistakable precision. Charles struggled, not as a king, but as a father. Anne held firm, reminding everyone that institutions crumble when boundaries blur. And Catherine spoke softly, pointing out that the statement didn't attack, it defined. And definition was what the monarchy desperately needed. When Charles finally gave his approval, it wasn't out of desire. It was out of trust. Trust in his son's judgment. Trust that William understood the consequences better than anyone. And just like that, the decision became real. At 7:48 a.m. the next morning, the world saw it. In California, the notification hit Harry's phone before sunrise. Those who know him say he didn't react with anger, just silence heavy enough to feel like a breaking point. Meghan read it after him, measured, composed, yet stunned by the finality of a message delivered in William's voice, not through intermediaries. In London, the palace shifted into immediate action. Communications, legal, and security departments recalibrated everything in minutes. There would be no partial roles, no ceremonial appearances, no future reconsideration. The path was closed, not privately, but publicly, permanently, and under the future king's name. British media praised the clarity. American media debated the morality. Social media exploded with conflicting takes. But beneath all the noise, everyone recognized the same truth. Something irreversible had been set in stone. For Meghan, the implications were instant. Without institutional ties, she would face new limitations, security logistics changing, public events becoming more complex, and long-term royal involvement for her children becoming uncertain. Not out of punishment, but out of protocol. Once the relationship is formally severed, the institution cannot extend privileges linked to standing that no longer exists. And for William, This marked the moment he stepped into a new role, not just the heir, but the leader who made the hardest decision of his public life. A decision that prioritized stability over sentiment, clarity over chaos, and responsibility over hope. Because in the end, this wasn't about winning. It wasn't about punishment. It was about ending a cycle that drained energy, resources, and emotional bandwidth for years. And for the first time since the conflict began, the monarchy was moving forward without waiting for reconciliation that might never come.